Hello, can you able to hear me? Can you able to hear me?
Yes, Aditya, we are able to hear you.
Okay, fine. Okay, let me start with the next chapter, which is workflow. So before we start configuring the workflow, few important things we should know about the workflow. However, most of the items in this discussion, you will feel that already we have discussed that earlier. But it is better that again we talk about that, because this is the time where we are talking about the particularly the workflow activities. So when I'm saying workflow, it is basically the business workflow. Okay, so that means I need one certain business flow. Because of that reason, I want to create a such kind of framework which will give me a certain particular business flow with respect to my customer. Now the question is, how many different type of workflow we have? Basically two different type of workflow we have. One is simple workflow and another one is rule-based workflow. Simple workflow is the one which we access by using T code SWDD, where we create the workflow from scratch. This one also we call it as a SAP workflow. Okay, none of the system is available. So SWDD, if you remember, we access the SWDD transaction to check the workflow template, where we can see the simple workflow, like the entire workflow structure starting from end and then in middle events, activities, etc. So that is nothing but the T code SWDD, which is also called as a SAP workflow. By using this T code, when we create the workflow, that workflow we also call it as a SAP workflow. That is nothing but simple workflow. But in the simple workflow, you have to create the workflow from very scratch, and then you have to create all the steps and then complete. But instead of doing all those activity from scratch, what SAP is saying, SAP says you need not to do everything from scratch. Instead of that, I will provide you the workflow template. Already we discussed what is workflow template. Workflow template is one standard structure which is providing by SAP. So respect to customer, respect to vendor, respect to material, respect to finance, we have different workflow template, and that starts with WS. So that starts with WS, some number. For customer, some, for even not only for customer, material or vendor, in fact for customer create some different workflow template, for change some different workflow template, for mark for deletion for different workflow template. So those workflow template is actually the schema which is representing the the activity, whether it is create, change, irrespective of, like, or respect to customer data, vendor data, master material master data, finance master data, etc. So that's what in rule based workflow, SAP providing you the workflow template. On the base of the workflow template, we are creating the rule-based workflow. We are creating all the in-middle steps, whatever it is required, those steps we are creating there. Now the question is, in MDG practice, what exactly the workflow we will use? Whether it will be simple workflow or rule-based workflow. Definitely it will be rule-based workflow, because simple workflow is now, you can say it is now it is quite old logic at this moment. So majority project, not only majority project, I can say almost every project, they use the rule-based workflow to define the workflow process, because rule-based workflow is the advanced approach of the, the workflow or the business workflow. So that's what we will always talk about, the rule-based workflow rather than the simple workflow. Okay. Now, if I quickly draw the workflow process, let's say I have a requester. Now the question is, how many different steps I can have? Like requester, verifier, approver, how many different steps I have like this? There can be n number of different steps I can have. N number. No limit at all. There can be, so it is absolutely depends on different organization that how many different steps they have in their business flow. In some company they may have a three level of approvals. In some other company they have, let's say, 5 levels of approval. Some other company they have 10 levels of approval. So it is purely the based on the customer organizational practice, okay, or the customer practice. So uh, you probably have seen that we talked about, like in data model, there is a standard data model, there is a customized data model, there is a enhancement of the standard data model. Similarly for UI case, like standard UI, customized UI, enhancement of standard UI. Similarly for process model, there is a standard process model, customized process model, or the enhancement of the existing standard process model. But particularly for workflow case, I cannot say that it is a standard workflow. There is nothing called standard workflow, because workflow is, business flow is very much customer oriented. Like the kind of a business flow Vodafone has, definitely Airtel has different type of business flow. Similarly, Reliance will have different kind of business flow. So every company, it differs every company. I cannot say that it is same for everyone. So business flow is the one which absolutely depends on the different company or different organization. So now let's say for an example here, we have requester, verifier and approver. These 3 steps. So what will happen? Requester will submit the data. And the moment it will submit the data will go to the staging area. Okay, the data will go to the staging area. So what about with the change request? So whenever the requesters submit the change request, the data will store in the staging area, but the change request will go to the verifier level. So in the verifier level, what will happen? So verifier will have 2 activity. Either he can approve it or he can reject it. So any one of the activity he can able to do. So requester will decide based on the change request data that whether that particular record will be approved or reject. If it is approved, then it will go to the approver and the data will still in the staging area. But if it is reject, what will be the scenario? For rejection scenario, the standard process is whenever someone reject the change request, it will back to the requester. It will back to the initiator. For an example, let's say in my group, in my team, project team, there are 10 members, okay, and I'm one of them. I'm the just one of the member. So let's say I want 10 days leave and I posted it to my manager. I submitted one request to my manager. So when my manager see the request, then he reject it. Whenever the request will be rejected, where that request will come? Definitely not for all 10 members. It will only come to me because it is absolutely my request. So I am the responsible person for that. So that's what similarly, whoever has created the change request, if verifier or approver or any of the level will reject that, that will back to the requester who requested that particular change request. Definitely not to the other people. Okay. So this is nothing but the request rejection concept. If it is approved, then definitely it will go to the next level, that is approval level. So at the approval level also I will have two options, whether I can approve it or I can reject it. So if I approve, then what will happen? Let's say this is for an example, approver is the last step, okay, and then activation will happen. The data will get activated and then complete. But again, if approver reject, then what will happen? It will go back to the requester, because requester is the owner of the change request. Because of that reason, it will go back to the requester. So whenever approver approve, it get activated and then complete, and the data will sit in active area. The data will sit in active area. Okay. So staging area and active area. Staging area store the inactive, uh, not activated record. So staging area store not activated record, and active area store activated record. Okay, and then finally it will go to the ECC table. So this is the workflow process, and this type of workflow we call it as a single processing. This type of workflow we call it as a single processing. That means one after another processing is happening. Requester submit, then it goes to the verifier, verifier approve or reject, then based on that it will go to the approver next level, then approver approve, then it will go for activation and then complete. So everything is happening step by step, one after another. It is not like that whenever requester submit, it directly goes to the approver. No, it never jump any specific step. It will come one after another. So this type of workflow we call it as a single processing. Now there is another type of workflow which we call it as a parallel processing. So what is parallel processing? Parallel processing is, let's say there is a requester. So requester submit the change request. The moment requester submit the change request, the data will go to verifier 1 and verifier 2. Okay, so the change request will go to two destination. One is verifier 1 and another one is verifier 2. Let me give you one real-time example for parallel processing. Let's say you requested for one new mobile phone to Flipkart. So in Flipkart, when you requested for a new mobile phone and you are located in Bangalore. So let's say for that particular mobile having two different vendor. One vendor is situated in South Bangalore and another vendor is situated in North Bangalore. So that means, let's say this is the vendor one is the North vendor and vendor 2 is the South vendor. Okay. Now we need a certain approval from both of the vendor that whether this particular detail of mobile is available or not. Okay, that means whatever the my attributes are my mobile features, let's say. So all those particular mobile features we have or not. So let's say North Bangalore will give the approval. Okay. Then South Bangalore. South Bangalore will give no. Just a minute. Let me say instead of saying North vendor, South vendor, let's say this is address verification team and this is financial transaction verification team. Little bit I change the requirement. Instead of saying North and South Bangalore, the easiest example will be, let's say I requested for a mobile in Flipkart, and when I requested for a mobile I have given my address detail that in Bangalore Kormangla, this block, this is the pin code number, etc., etc. And along with that, the financial transaction, like let's say the mobile cost is 10,000. So 10,000, this is the card number, this is the expiry date, etc., etc. So now, when you submitted the change request or when you submitted the request for mobile, it will go to two specific teams. One team is responsible for address verification. Like you requested for reach to home address. The product has to reach to home address, home delivery. So first they will check whether the address you have provided, it is correct or not. If it is a correct address, then they will give the proper approval. If it is not correct address, then they will provide the rejection. So whenever the address verification team will reject it, all the request will considered as a reject and it will back to the requester. Similarly, verifier 2. It is a financial transaction verification team. Whatever the financial transaction you made, whether that transaction made properly, whether the amount has been credited to that particular vendor properly, that they will verify. Once the verification is done, then this team will give necessary approval. Or if it is a reject, then it will provide the reject. The moment it will reject, the entire change request will consider reject and it will back to the requester. Okay. Now let's say approver gives approve and verifier 2 gives reject. What will happen in such case? Always remember, any one of the level, if it gives rejection, so rejection will get the priority. So any one of the verifier, if they will give the reject, the entire change request will consider as a reject and it will back to the requester. Always rejection has priority. Okay, so this is the thumb rule. So if anyone approve and another person reject, then the entire change request will consider as a reject. Okay, and then once this verification done, let's say this is also approved, and then it goes to the next level, let's say approval level. So approval level, again the one level. For an example, like this is a warehouse team for data dispatch. So approver is the warehouse team who will dispatch the material or the product for product dispatch. Okay, and once approver will check whether this product is available in the warehouse or not, accordingly it will give the approval or rejection. So if it is reject, then again back to the requester, because the product is not available in the warehouse. Okay, so it will back to the requester. So if it is available, then it is approved. And finally, when it is approved, then it gets activated and then complete.
Aditya,
Yes.
when you say activated, it means our it reaches to the active
Change
area, right? That is
request
what
will
you mean.
get activated. Our change request will get activated. Activation is a process where the entire change request, whatever the data you have entered, those data will get activated. Okay.
Okay.
So this is nothing but the parallel processing, where some point of time your particular request is run parallelly. The process is run parallelly. That is nothing but the parallel process. Okay. So now the next item we will talk about, which is task. What is called task? Task means, if I say in a general term, starting from morning to till go to bed, whatever we are doing the activity, that is nothing but the task. Like we are working, that is one task. We are driving, that is one task. We are let's say taking lunch, that is another task. We are playing football, that is another task. So every single activity which we are doing, that is nothing but task. Similarly, in workflow, every single activity we are doing, that is nothing but task. Like what kind of activity? Like let's say activation. Activation is one task. Then approval, then rejection, then let's say complete, then rollback. So these are all nothing but each and every task which is happening almost each and every business process. It is very much common task which is happening each and every business process. So these are all nothing but the task. Now, based on the activity which we have in rule-based workflow, to see that we divide the entire task into two parts. One is background task, and another one is foreground task. So first of all, what is called background task? By name itself, it is quite clear. It is a background. So it's a background activity. So the task which is happening at the back end, like for an example, activation. Activation is happening at the back end. So let's say I want to recharge my mobile phone with 500 rupees. So when I'm recharging my mobile phone with 500 rupees, so first what I need to do, I need to enter my mobile number. Then I need to enter the amount. Then what will happen? Then we need to submit it. The moment we submit, what happened? That 500 rupees plan is getting activated in my mobile phone. The 500 rupees plan will activate in my mobile phone. That is nothing but the activation. So that activation is happen at the back end. So it takes some time to processing, and then it activate that 500 rupees plan in my mobile. So this is nothing but activation is nothing but the background task which is happening at the back end. Similarly, like completion. Completion is another task which is happening at the back end. Whenever the process is complete, let's say I want to submit the mobile bill or the some particular bill. What happened when I enter the amount details and then transactional details, my card details or net banking details, then it takes few minutes time to complete the process and generate some PDF file or some notification mail that hey, you have completed this activity properly. So that is nothing but the completion. So completion is one of the activity which is happening at the back end. Okay, so these are all nothing but the background task which is happening at the back end. What is called foreground task? Foreground means front. That means that activity or the task which is happening at the front. That is nothing but approve, reject. These are all activity which is a foreground task. So let's say what will happen whenever I submit the change request, verifier will go and click on the approve button. So there will be approve button and reject button. So verifier will go manually and click the approve button, then only the change request will approve it. Whenever we will go and click on the reject button, then only the change request will reject and it will back to the requester. So approve and rejection is the process where user has to go manually and has to click that particular button. That is nothing but the foreground task which is happening at the foreground level. Like approval, rejection, this is a foreground task which is happening at the foreground level. That is nothing but the foreground task. Okay, so that's what, to see all those tasks we have defined whether it is a foreground task or a background task. Now the task always start with TS, like workflow template start with WS. Similarly, tasks start with TS. Every task has some individual task number, like activation having some certain task number, approval having some certain task number, and these are all unique number. Those numbers are not repeating. It's a unique number. It will be unchanged for that particular task. So that number starts with TS. TS means task, like for activation, for an example, TS001. For approval, it's TS002. For rejection, it's TS003. Like this way, for every task, we have some certain task number, and it is a always unique number. It does not change any certain point of time. Okay. So this is nothing but whether it is a background task or foreground task, the task number will start with TS. TS means task. Similarly, WS means workflow template. Whenever I will see that it is a WS, that means workflow template. WS. Okay. It is workflow template. So any question on that? Whatever we have talked about so far?
Aditya,
Workflow.
yeah,
Yeah.
Aditya, I have a few questions.
Yes.
Um,
Mr.
First, the highlighted line, rule-based workflow. Okay, so what is the workflow number for that? Is it WS86 few zeros 86? That is the workflow it is used for business rules framework.
I think you haven't attended the last few classes, right?
Yeah,
Because
last.
workflow, yes, I would rather say go through the last few videos, because workflow template is not based on the rule-based workflow. Workflow template is based on the particular process and based on the particular master data, whether it is a customer master data or material master data or vendor master data. Based on different type of master data, we have for different processes, we have some certain workflow template number. So those template number we are talking about here.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
So the parallel workflow, can we configure this, for example, using the BRFS tables, or we have to implement some bodies or something to achieve that?
Definitely. Definitely we need to write somebody. That I'm coming to one after another. First I'm giving the overall understanding, then slowly I will come to the technical part. Definitely we have to write somebody.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other question? Okay. So now we have the basic workflow configuration, some basic workflow configuration uh, based on different type of master data. Okay, based on uh, different master data, like for customer, for vendor, for finance, for material. So for different type of master data, we have some basic workflow configuration that we will talk about, but it seems the system is not available because they are trying to copy the old system to the new system. So I'm not really sure today we can start this configuration. Rather than, I would like to say, if you have any question from, so at least so far, starting from beginning to till today, what are
Okay.
those questions we have? Let's talk about all those questions because the system is not available today.
Okay. Aditya, I have one question. See,
Yes, please.
when just go up. When the approver rejects something and it reaches to the requester, so it will also send the rejection note, right?
Yes, it will. The rejection will happen along with the rejection note. Rejection note
Okay.
is a mandatory activity. Okay,
And
whenever you will reject the change request, we need to write the rejection note and then click on the rejection.
okay, so that note might be a single one liner that this particular CR is rejected because of this reason.
Not maybe on one liner, there might be more than one liner, but there will be a specific space which
Okay.
I will show you when the system will available and when we will develop the entire workflow.
Okay.
When you are rejecting, the note box will come which having some good amount of character available. You can write a few
Okay.
lines there. So there you
So
have to text properly and you have
okay.
to justify why you are rejecting the change request.
Okay. And suppose in the email, when the email will go, so in the subject line also it will, suppose the requirement will be like this particular CR has been rejected. So that will also be
Email part,
captured.
yes, yes, there can be possible. In
Okay.
email also it can be possible, but let email part not discussed at this moment.
Correct.
Because
Correct.
if I will discuss, because I'm going one by one.
Okay.
Yes, workflow, email is a part of workflow, but first I want to complete the workflow without email notification. Then
Okay.
I will come to the email notification, because when I will come to the email notification, I have not only the email notification, along with email, I have four different services.
Okay.
Four different services. One is email notification, another one is rule context preparation, another one is parallel processing, the body which uh, I was talking about just few minutes back, that yes, we have to write some body and all. This, under this activity comes. And
Yes.
then dynamic agent selection. So these are all four different services which we call as a service body. Service body. There we will talk about those email notification, rule context preparation, parallel processing, and dynamic agent selection. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this
So
functionality is ready with both the simple workflow and the BRF plus,
yes,
both, right?
email notification can be with the simple workflow, also can be with the parallel workflow. Rule
And the
context preparation also can be with the simple work, not simple, rule-based workflow. Rule-based workflow and the parallel workflow as well, or the single processing and the parallel workflow as well. Parallel processing is absolutely the parallel workflow, and dynamic agent selection also can be possible for parallel processing and also the single processing.
okay. And everywhere the rejection note is possible.
Everywhere. Rejection note is not only with services.
Huh.
Rejection note will come with rejection. Whenever you reject, there
Okay.
should be one mandatory note you have to write. You have
Okay.
to give the justification why you are rejecting.
Okay.
Otherwise, you cannot reject the change request. It is one
Okay.
mandatory activity. Okay.
Okay. Okay. And Aditya, last class we had some queries. Did you?
But today's system is not available, right?
That
If
depends
you
the
see
system.
last class, one is CBA. I don't know tomorrow whether system will available or not. Until and
Okay.
unless we have the system, we cannot talk about the CBA. And this one, I really did not get some time. Give me some
Okay.
time, I will back to you, because
Okay.
I need some time to gather the information. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other
Yes, sir.
question?
Yeah.
Yes, please tell me.
Yes, under UI modeling, some functionality is there, business settings. What is the use?
What is the, can you come again, the question?
Under UI modeling,
Mm-hmm.
some business add-ons is there, so, process.
Business add-on is nothing but the body. The in UI level, can we possible to add some body? That means can it is possible to add some logic under the enhancement, which we talked about under the feeder class. If you recall properly, the body means, which we talked about, body contained class. UI body means body contained class. that is nothing but the feeder class. Feeder class. Class contain the methods and methods contain the logic. Okay, so whenever I'm saying that I'm making some add-on in UI, that means I'm writing some additional logic in feeder class of enhancement of the feeder class. That means under this method I'm creating some enhancement. There I'm writing some certain logic which is a part of this feeder class, and this feeder class is nothing but part of body. So we have seen how we have enhanced the specific feeder class. Basically we are enhancing the feeder class. That is nothing but the UI add-on. Okay,
Here we
is
are
that
doing
clear?
any configuration.
Sorry?
In the portion we are doing any configuration like that.
No, we have already shown that, right? We have created many enhancement like workflow per UI steps, then how to make it mandatory, how to make it grayed out, how to make it read only. These are all enhancement we have done, right? In one of the class.
Okay.
That is nothing but the enhancement in the feeder class. You need not to do any certain configuration for that. Already we have done that enhancement. Like I want to make one certain field as a mandatory, where I need to write the code. Under the feeder class, under particular specific method, let's say get data. Under get data, I want to write the code. So there I will enhance my code here. I want to make the workflow as per the like one field editable or non-editable as per the workflow. Like we have seen based on the workflow flow, how it is happening. This is nothing but the enhancement. Okay. Any question? Any other question? Whatever we have completed based on that.
Okay, Aditya, I have one
Yeah.
question. Like suppose
Yeah.
in the suppose we have implemented vendor, we have implemented finance, okay, and suppose because both of them are existing in the same MDG box only, okay. So suppose I want to use profit center, which is a part of the vendor uh, the object, okay. So but profit center is actually an output of the finance. Okay, so can I club them? Means suppose can I get the input, the drop down, or suppose we have created a new profit center and it means it is coming under finance. So that object, is it usable for a vendor directly
That
without doing any?
usability, I cannot say right this at this moment. You need to check to add the data in the data model, like particular profit center entity type. Okay, profit center having some certain entity type. So
Okay.
try to add that entity type in the data model and try to bring that particular data on UI, that vendor UI or customer UI. Then you can see that how that particular field is behaving respect to the vendor data and customer data. So at this
Uh,
moment, it is difficult to say that how it will behave, because profit center is a part of the finance data. So how that particular, and you are trying to access that same entity type from BP. So in BP, try to add that particular entity type, try to add those attributes which is a part of the profit center, and try to see how the fields of profit center behave along with the customer and vendor data.
okay.
Okay.
Okay. So basically I need to
Yeah, you have
okay.
to analyze it with adding those at, entities in data model, bring that particular field in UI, do the required mapping, whatever the mapping is required, and then try to see how the field values are happening based on customer and vendor data.
Okay.
Okay. Any other question?
Aditya, like the way we are creating mass create, mass changes, mass. So we are also means mass delete is also one of the.
Once I will come to the mass change, I will talk about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Mass delete, mass block. Okay.
Yeah. That is multiple material processing. That is a
Okay.
part of multiple material processing. So once I will reach that chapter, I will
Okay.
talk about that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. If Pawan is there, Pawan, we have not received yesterday's video.
Okay. Any more question? So then I'm closing the call for today. So until we get back the system, we cannot start the next activity, which is basic workflow configuration based on different master data. Okay, that is our
Okay.
first next activity. Fine then. So tomorrow I will take the class from morning 8 a.m.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
from morning 8 a.m. IST. Tomorrow I will take the class. Okay, thanks then. Okay, bye.
Hi Aditya.
Yeah. Tell me.
Just you told the system is not ready. Can I okay, expect tomorrow it's ready?
I'm not
System.
really sure. You check with Pawan.
Okay.
If the system is not ready, then we cannot start anything. So it is very much uh, required that system should be in place. Okay.
No.
So you check with Pawan. If system is not ready, then I don't think so. It is a good idea to assemble for class. Once system will be ready, then only let's start the discussion. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Fine.